All right. Lord, thank you for allowing us all to get together again today. Such a good group of people to really talk about really deep, complicated subjects. But every time that you're in our presence, you make those subjects much more understandable and palatable for us. And we really love you for that and appreciate it. Open up our minds today as we talk about some very complicated discussions and keep us thoughtful and open-minded as we go, as you always do. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. So to kind of warm us up a little bit, I do have a fun activity to do. You may have seen this one before. And if you have, don't give away the answer too much, but you probably haven't seen the second part of this. So I'm going to share my screen. And this activity that I call basically scaling up solutions and connecting those dots. So one of the, you may need to you could stare at the screen or you can think about it. But this is one of those activities where if you have a piece of paper or a pen nearby, just some kind of scratch, grab that. If not, you can maybe kind of trace your finger over the screen. But one of the activities here is to connect all the dots. That's your goal. And the rule is you can't lift your pen and you have to draw 4 straight lines to connect the dots. Now it's going to make sense when I show you the dots that you're going to have to connect. So there's these 9 dots that are on the screen here. And your mission is to connect the dots with 4 straight lines. So remember, you got 4 straight lines to connect the dots. And these are average dots with average lines. So not like really super thick lines, just the average drawing of the pen or pencil to connect these dots. So that's your goal. So let's take a minute and see if you can do this one. Have any of you done this one? Have you seen this activity before? Awesome. All right.
I can't do
it. Throw it in the towel. So a tip as you think about how you might do this is think outside the box. That's your hint. Think outside the box. All right, Sean, it's the end of the day. What are you making me think for?
Yeah, it's so easy to do it with 5.
I've definitely seen this one before. I just forget how to do it.
Yeah. All right, you ready? So we got 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines.
Oh, wait a minute. Now that's cheating because
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
So
dots, it doesn't say that your pen can't go outside the dots.
That's right. See, what was happening, what we typically do is we put a mental box around what is possible. And we put ourselves there. Just like the one from a couple weeks ago when we had to draw those 5 boxes and turn them into 4 boxes, we used the void. This is taking that and twisting it just a little bit in that we mentally put ourselves in this 3x3 box and we operated within this box and our whole world was there. But really, in order to accomplish the mission that we had to accomplish, we needed to push those boundaries. All right, so you get the idea with this one. So you're like, okay, Sean, I get the trick. But can you do one with 6 straight lines to connect the dots in a 4x4? So you know the secret, right? So the secret is to think outside the box. Now what do you do? So I'll give you a minute for this one. And after our activity, we'll go into our scripture and our open discussion. All right. The hint on this one is the last one we went outside the box. This one, there's at least one line that stays within the box. So I'll give you the hint on I'll give you the first line. That's the first line. Get you started. And then I'll give you the second line. Kind of after I give you the second line, you get you on the path to getting it. Ready for the second one?
Yeah.
All right, getting closer. Third line will do it. Ready? Now we go outside. Third line. All right, fourth line. It's going to be a long one. Takes you all the way down.
Wow.
All right, then you go to the next line. Takes the bottom row.
Wow.
And then you hit the next line. Takes you in.
Wow.
Oh, you could have, oh
Two.
man, I tell you what, I can't think tonight.
Three,
I didn't realize they had 6 lines. I'm trying to do it in
Four.
4. I'm like, no way.
5, 6. Oh yeah. Yeah, 6 lines. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can actually, I did some research on this, and you can actually there's a mathematical formula that will scale this up even higher. So this one was 6 lines and a 4x4. Well, what about the next line? I think if it goes up, see what the other one's 4 lines, 6 lines. So 8 lines and a 5x5. There is one that does that. I don't have that here for our activity. And I think it goes up to like a 9x9. Like there's ways to do that in, those increments to figure out what this pattern is. So it is an algorithmic pattern to do these activities and draw these lines in a certain way. But generally, yeah, I mentioned, the 5x5. So we talked about this box that we kind of live in. And the whole idea is all of these things, they may seem very simple, like that was an easy one, but all these things, they scale up. There's possibilities outside of our box, but even that box can be different size depending on who you're working with, who you're interacting with, or what problem you're trying to solve. So there's, as we go throughout our discussion today, that's something to think about, is what kind of mental boxes are we putting ourselves in, but also what kind of mental boxes do other people live in? And are there ways that we can help break those boundaries? And that's a lot of what our grow group is all about, with kind of connecting, God's word with everything. How can we, spread that word and amplify, his voice to everyone who needs to hear it. And there's ways to do that. What are some of your thoughts and takeaways with this activity?
I'll start off. I'm very black and white. I mean, my whole first career working on automotive was very black and white. There's only one way to do it, and if you weren't doing it by the book, then you were wrong. And so oftentimes it's difficult for me to think outside the box.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
I don't see the
understandable.
gray.
How about you, Ethan? What do you think? You're muted.
I mean, I'm not sure, honestly. I mean,
it's a good kind of mind bender.
like, I guess I can really help tell that, like, you don't need to like follow everything that your brain says. Like, there's some things that you can do differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the challenge is, we get stuck in, this box. There's no lines. That box, there's no white lines that makes it a square. Our mind makes it a box based on its shape. That's part of, how our brains work, right? To help think and perceive things faster, we our minds create objects of similarity in shape and design so we can process everything a lot faster. And because of that, sometimes it's hard to break out of things that are outside of what our brain is telling us to see, because we're trained to process very quickly, especially patterns that we train our eyes to see. And just like in Jason's example, he was trained to see things a very certain way very early on in his career. And it's really hard to train yourself into thinking about something a little bit differently when you've been, hard coded to think about and look at things a certain way.
So relate this back. So like Jason, Jason was trained in automotive and I was trained in ministry. So, and I came from a tradition that, for you to get baptized, you had to go through 4 weeks of classes, and so when I came to Impact City, and I've learned there's all kinds of ways to do church. And, of course I knew that when I came to Impact. I think the thing that I keep learning all the time is that the strength of Justin as the lead is that Justin has this uncanny ability to simplify everything. So how can we make this ministry, or whatever aspect we're talking about, how do we make it as simple and accessible as possible? And so I have to work on that a lot, and allow my mind to go there. And I still feel the boxes wanting to close it in, and I have to constantly kick down the walls.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to apply this type of thinking. If there are volunteers, this is another one of those activities that I do with my team, especially new members of my team that come on. And, again, it's one of those, like, how do they tackle the problem? How do we start, training the mindset of, the obvious answer may not always be so obvious to certain people, but also thinking a little bit, how do you help people start to think a little bit differently, or open them up and make them feel a little bit uncomfortable? Some people are a little bit anal retentive, in the sense that they don't want to send the line outside that square. That really bothers them. But we need those people too. We need those people to help keep us in line, and keep us, in a very logical place moving forward. So as we kind of tackle all of our different conversations we're going to have over the next 45 minutes or so, I want us to really think about our scripture as our lens for this evening. And it's this passage from James 4:11-12. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and the judge's law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There's only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Now, I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm not even close, but this is one of those that it has so many different types of applications. And there's probably a context here that, Bob, you could, share, that I'm not aware of. But especially when it comes to, I think about this one a lot when I think about social media, when I think about reputation, when I think about just like the one video we're going to talk about is, what happens after, we leave the earth, right? What happens when our digital estate planning needs to take effect? What happens then? Or another term is social media legacy. So digital estate planning, social media legacies, what are we leaving behind, and who are we entrusting those to? There's a lot to think about there. But it's also easy not to think about it. But at the same time, how should we be operating in these spaces, or how should we be interpreting the usage of technology by others. And I think this one is a really good model for us to live up to when we think about activities online.
Well, I think that you hit it, because what this passage is ultimately talking about is influence.
Mm,
So what happens is when you basically betray another by speaking evil or judging, what you're basically doing, this, in addition to setting yourself up as the judge, which you're not allowed to do, but what happens is that you immediately relinquish your influence over that person.
mm,
And then what happens is, once you relinquish the influence, I'm talking positive influence. Obviously, you could have influence, negative or positive, but once you relinquish positive influence, it's pretty near impossible to get it back. And so it's one of those things to where it's not just the fact that you set yourself, there's pride and all kinds of things. But the one thing that we talk a lot about in staff is that it takes seconds to eradicate influence.
mm.
And social media is the best way to do it. If you want to lose influence and lose your mind on social media, that's a great way to do it. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Jason, Ethan, any thoughts before we, move to the heart of our conversation today? Okay, if not.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it both ways. I mean, 4 years ago, I stopped on Facebook just simply because we had family members fighting over the political stuff, and it wasn't doing anything. And even to this, 4 years later, same people are posting the same stuff about the same issues, the same election cycle. We're through the election cycle, but honestly, I mean, I'm talking about cousins, out of towners, stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it never helps anything, and I want so bad, so many times, just post something. Oh, people need to hear this or see this. And it's like, yeah, but so what if they do or they don't? Like, I mean, it's just, so I try and abstain, but every once in a while, I'll pull something out and post it. And then I go, why did I do that?
It's hard, isn't it? You want to use that outlet, but I think that, as we become more mature, and Ethan, I'm not sure where you are in the spectrum of your use of social in this type of capacity, but it takes a lot of willpower and acceptance to be comfortable and confident in who you are, and to not post or treat people a certain way, or to be open-minded in certain ways. It's hard.
Yeah.
All right. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen here so we can all see each other a little bit. And Jason, did you get a chance to watch those videos that I shared on Friday? I know that Ethan wasn't able to yet.
I did not.
That's okay. Bob, you said
I
you were able
really,
to, right?
I did not go back and watch last week's either yet, and I really want to, because SEO is something that I was really wanting to do. I'm really kind of bummed I missed last week, but
Yeah. Well, it is all there.
Yeah.
You're muted, Bob. Did you want to say something? Okay. There you
Yeah, I was just going to say it's really good, Jason. It's there for you. So yeah.
yeah. And then if I have follow-ups, Sean, you and I can get together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But no, it's on my radar. I definitely want to go back and watch it.
Cool. There was a couple of those TED Talks that I shared on Friday. And the first one, I can't remember what, I guess it doesn't matter which one you watched first, because the one that I'd actually like to talk about is that digital estate planning, or that social media legacy piece. And this is one of those topics that I just find ever fascinating, because this space is becoming more ripe with innovation, artificial intelligence. The AI boom is really playing having an influence in this space, and how we think about that outside the box. So this is one of those. I think it was John Ronson. I think it was John. Was it John Ronson's video? I can't remember now off the top of my head. Did he do? No, John Ronson did the cyberbullying one. This one was Adam Ostro. So there was a TED talk where Adam Ostro presented on the idea of what happens to your digital footprint after you pass away. We know what happens to, our spiritual footprint, right? Well, what happens to our digital presence? But then what kind of impact does that have on your family and your friends? So I'll give a quick, a quick personal story, and I'm sure you may have your own as well. So my wife Rebecca, her sister, so my sister-in-law, she passed away unexpectedly on a graduate school program trip to South Africa. She had a stroke in South Africa, and she passed away in the country.
Who is this?
Rebecca's sister.
Okay.
So she was getting her MBA, and they were on an excursion, a consulting trip in South Africa. And 3 days after she landed, she got a blood clot in her leg, and it traveled up to her brain, her artery, and she had a stroke and she died. It's a pretty tragic story, because I've been to South Africa. I spent 4 weeks in South Africa in 2003, and it's they have a lot of capability in that country, but there's also it's very wide ranging in from the ugly to the pretty. And there was a lot of cash that needed to take place, and she got refused for treatment by at least 3 hospitals before she was accepted to the fourth one. So just lots of crazy stories. But a couple of the good things that came out, well, I don't know if the good thing can come out of that, but generally related to our conversation, there was a GoFundMe that was set up. So think back to week one. So her company set up a GoFundMe to help, raise, college funds and those types of things for my nephews. But she had a digital presence. She had a LinkedIn profile. She was a corporate salesperson, very very successful, Johnson and Johnson rep, and then she moved into medical sales, medical products. She was actually, at a startup, and that actually is moved on to even phase funding now for detecting colon cancer. So that's what she was working with doctors on, colon cancer detections work. And so she had a very powerful LinkedIn presence. She also had a very powerful Facebook presence. So what happens to those? Well, I tell you, it was a little bit creepy when you see some of those like feed posts come from somebody who isn't there anymore. Like, why am I seeing this post in my news feed when I know you're not alive anymore? And then what happens to your Facebook presence? So there's a lot of tools there that exist now that really are starting to become more mature. So what my brother-in-law did was you have to submit death certificate and all those types of things, and Facebook will put your account in memorial, so in memoriam. So her Facebook page is still there. So for years, I can't remember when she passed away. It's like 5 years ago now, I think.
Really, they don't take it down. They put it. That's
it's a choice. It's a choice.
Okay.
It's a choice of the survivor. So you can have that is the question that I'd like to open up for discussion. So what do you follow the will of the person and what you want that person wants with their properties? Which 5 years ago, that wasn't put in a lot of wills. Like, what do I want with my what do I want? If I go first, what do I want Rebecca to do with my Facebook, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, all of my social media profiles? What do I want done with them? There's a lot of content there. There's a lot of pictures there. My birthday comes up every year type of thing. And so for years, her friends would post, hey, it's your birthday, wish you were here. It's not for her, but it's for the family and friends to have that grieving time, that closure, or that remembrance of a person from their lives. But at the same time, is it creepy or not creepy to have, those presents? In that Google sheet, I posted an article from USA Today that, the math is there, but it was something like around 50 years or so, there are going to be more deceased people on Facebook than live ones, technically speaking. So at some point in time, that's going to happen.
See, no, that's just odd to me because I understand in the grand scheme of things, it might not be a lot of storage space, but You know, like, I mean, just in our area, you know, they're just building server farm after server farm after server farm. And if that's the case, that there could potentially be more dead people than live people, like, what's the point of all that storage space and all these facilities and running them and maintaining them to keep all that data? I mean, I'm just spitballing.
Yeah, that's a great question. There aren't answers to any of these things. If you're like some people nowadays, this will connect to the cyberbullying question, so you can dig up old content and hold it against people. But just like we talked about also up to this point, we looked at archive.org and the Wayback Machine, and just being able to, all that content is scanned anyway. Just how easy accessible do you want it? The other topic to throw out in this one, if your brain isn't already full enough already, is tools like planning tools. There are artificial intelligence software companies that you can get a subscription for, and you can write basically a series of social media posts on. You can do one of several ways, but two of the popular ones are, you can write posts and have them scheduled out and have them trigger after you die. And so you end up posting, kind of evergreen content for a certain period of time. Or you let the artificial intelligence, you basically let a computer scan your entire history, capture your voice, your tone, types of things you post, those types of things, and have them write posts on your behalf like you are alive.
What?
Mm-hmm.
That's
spend
not
money on
right.
See, that's creepy.
It's a thing. I posted I'll share my screen and bring it over here. Let me pull it over.
I think that's pushing it a little bit far.
There's some kind of ethical thing there, but there are people that definitely do that. And so let me do this one. So this link is in that Google sheet. So posting from the grave, keep your social media accounts alive once you are dead. So there are many tools that do this. Quick Google search or give you a lot of them. But I thought this site and article, I think, really kind of summed up a lot of, kind of the sentiment and kind of the questions or the thought-provoking pieces that happen. Kind of what you need to know and some of the ideas, bad or not. So you can do, it's like, if you were going to do it, here's some suggestions, right? Here's the type of content that you can post or pre-write, ahead of time. It's kind of very similar to, you can write a series of letters. There's been movies around the topic, right? Where you can write a series of notes, give them to somebody that will outlive you most likely, and then have that person drop those notes off to your kids or something like after the fact, like letters that you've written in advance. That's not uncommon. Doing so automatically and having an AI or having your post scheduled to go out at a certain time. I'm not sure how. The question I do not know the answer to is, you can schedule like Facebook posts, for example, to go out. I'm not sure how far in advance you can schedule those. It might be forever. So could I schedule a post to go out in like the year, 2098? I would be like 120 years old, so I won't be around. Could I make that happen? Will Facebook even be around, that far in advance? I don't know. MySpace is dead. It didn't last that long. Facebook could be the same boat. Who knows? So what do you do after, with your accounts after, you want to go? What does your family feel? How appropriate is that? Do you respect the wishes? If I wish my account to go in memorial status and stay active, but Rebecca's like, yeah, you know what? It really hurts. I need to move on. I really need to close this account down. What do you do?
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of good to start thinking about some of these things, because you don't, even if you don't take a lot of action on it, having at least put the mental brakes on some of these things to think about this will help speed up your thought process later on when you have to think about it or coach others through it.
Yeah, I'm glad, I don't know. I don't have a social media presence. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Instagram. The only thing I have is Facebook. And it's mainly just so that I can, keep tabs on family and what other people are posting. I don't really post much at all. I don't think I've uploaded a picture in God knows how long. But yeah, man, for these younger generations, I mean, and even my Facebook account's only been active, I think, for 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years. I don't know. And I wouldn't want, if I was a young buck like Ethan, I don't think I would want people 20 years from now being able to go back and see what I was like when I was a teenager, for jobs, for social purposes, for marriages, and stuff like that. Marriage, singular, I don't think I want it. But
Yeah, I'm that same way. I hate when people go back and look at my old kind of stuff. It's like, it's just kind of weird. Like I had a time where some kids in my class at school were like looking at my old YouTube videos when I was like 10 years old. And I was just like, oh, why are you watching that? And I don't want people going back and like looking at my super old stuff when I was like a little kid. And so I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, one of our topics next week is going to be around privacy and security settings. And one of the capabilities that you have is we're gonna go through and talk about some of those and the ways that you can curate the feed to be what you want to see, when you want to see it, and who you want to see it from. Because most people just go with the default. And you know, for example, no one can post to my page. I mentioned my birthdays. People don't actually see. I don't get birthday wishes on Facebook because people don't know when my birthday is. And if I don't show it, then they don't get a reminder that says, "Hey, it's Sean's birthday." They don't see any of it. I see Legos, Star Wars, puzzles, camping stuff. I see what I want to see. And then there's a couple of news outlets like IGN, a couple of PC gamer, things like that. I see what I want to see. But a lot of people get wrapped up into not curating the security of their profiles and the privacy settings, and then they get caught up into some of that stuff.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of the things that I've been a stickler on is privacy settings, Windows and also Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was funny. I had I don't know, I don't know if I had a personal like aha moment, but I remember just for some weird reason years ago, like counting how many people wished me happy birthday, and I thought that was stupid.
Yeah.
So I took it off. So my birthday is not listed because, first of all, it's fake. Okay. It is fake. I don't believe those individuals really care it's my birthday. And the only people who really care it's my birthday is my mother and my wife. Okay. But the other people, they don't care. Okay. And so I'm sorry if that stings, but I think it's not genuine. I think it's become kind of a social media appropriate, like courtesy,
Yep.
but it's not genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the reason why I took it off. And so of course, Sarah, what she does is that she'll put on Facebook, it's my husband's birthday. And of course, then people, so it happens. But I just think I think it's a fake. I don't think I can't stand it. So I took it off.
Yeah. And you're okay with that. That is perfectly socially acceptable. It's very much the same reason why I've taken that approach as well. It's like the people who know it's my birthday today will wish me happy birthday.
Absolutely. And they're the people who really care.
They're the people that need to know and want to know
exactly
that it's my
right.
birthday, right?
Right.
But not everyone feels like that. There are folks that really like they need that gratification and connection.
Right.
There are some colleagues and friends that I've had over the years that it's quantity over quality when it comes to friends and engagements with other people, for all kinds of reasons, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So it's that balance, but understanding what people prefer is also very, very challenging because it's hard to understand why anybody would want that. But then there are
Right.
people that really, really do.
Right.
What do you think about that? Well, Bob, I guess you're the one that there's the cyberbullying one. So do you want to give I can give a synopsis unless you want to
No,
give
go
a
ahead.
synopsis. Okay.
Yeah.
So generally this is it's a tough topic, especially, it's an older video, but it was really at the kind of the start of some of the severe cyberbullying stuff. Cause now there's actually school training. So when my wife, when she taught, STEM classes in the digital class inside of her sixth graders, part of the curriculum was cyberbullying and things like that. So now it's really worked its way into everything. But that video, I thought, for that TED talk from John Ronson, is really well done in the sense that he really approaches it from a very thoughtful perspective. And the story that he uses to illustrate might seem minor compared to some of today's activities, but generally it has the essence of heart that I want to focus on. So the story goes, there's a woman that took a flight from the United States into an African country. I don't know if it was South Africa or a country, but it was a long flight. That's the point. And so she had tweeted out a statement and then got on an airplane for a long time. And that statement that she made, I honestly can't remember the exact word for word, but it was one such that it offended some people. It was taken out of context, or taken in a context that she did not intend. And she was unplugged for like 20 hours or some ridiculously long time. There was no way that she could get on and even see anything that was happening. The impression of the masses, because not that many people knew that she was being unplugged for that period of time right after she put out this message. She was being unresponsive, and all those negative connotations that come across with somebody not responding. And then when she lands, you get online, you check your messages, and all of a sudden she's flooded with hate and just these reactions. And now she kind of has to, she's unbearing herself on, what do you do now? She didn't mean the intention that some people were taking this. And what do you do when you're in that situation? So that was what the video was generally about. Bob, do you have any additions to that overview?
No, I mean it's I was just it's not really an addition to, because you did a good job, but I am right now, I'm gonna I think to the point that, and I want to be careful what I'm saying because I don't want to reveal a situation, but I'm helping and I'm mentoring someone right this second who got online and did what you just described over multiple years. And they are suffering. Now, the person that I'm referring to, they would be classified as the cyber bully, not the receiver. Okay. What is happening to this person right now, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart what's happening to this person.
That's, we were just talking about, the history of your legacy, after you pass away. It works both ways. So having, how you treat other people, in the digital space sticks around a lot longer than, those of us that grew up without the internet. And if, you have a fight on the playground, it kind of stays there or what have you. or after a little bit of time you move away, things kind of get forgotten. But nowadays, that's not a lot where this stuff takes place, or those types of things stick. So if you're trying to turn your ways around and how you treated people when you were younger, it's a little bit harder to do that. It's possible,
Yeah.
but it's definitely harder. So, well, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. These are a couple of topics that I just wanted to. When I talk about social media, these are two topics that I really like to bring up, really more for thought provocation than anything else, because there are things that are not there. It's the dark side of social media, and it's not the darkest side even. But there are two sides that are definitely worth mentally processing, because they are two topics that we all deal with or will deal with eventually, or we will help others. Bob, you're in a very unique situation compared to most people in the sense you get to mentor and help and advise a lot of people in both of these situations, probably more frequently than many of us. But these are two very good topics to think about. And if we switch over to the technology side, um, objectively, that's where it really gets fast. From the topic of the class, strategically, that's where it gets fascinating from my end. So the content aside, that's not what I'm referring to as fascinating. When I refer to as fascinating, it's that the scanning of all of your content and having a computer interpret your tone of voice and put together unique original content for you to post, or the bots that automatically scroll through content, follow the rules, and either strip or censor or block content deemed with those particular rules. Just think about the technology that is enabling those functions to happen. I mean, it's remarkable that those types of things can be done if you think about how much is published every single second in the whole world. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, those stats that guy put on that video, and that video that you had us watch, that was 2011. That was 10 years ago.
yeah, that one was.
Think about the amount of volume that is going out. I can't even comprehend it.
Yeah, I mean, it's several hundred hours of YouTube videos per second. I
What?
mean, oh yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is like you can't even think about how many teraflops of data are being produced, nowadays. It's just unbelievable. How well human history is being recorded right now, and how it's being indexed and archived for future generations. And it's fascinating when you get into some of the AI, the robotics. So let's extend our minds out even further. So let's think outside the box. So could you take so I don't post a lot on social media. I mean, if you want to look at my puzzles, my Star Wars, or pictures of my family, that's what you're going to see. But some things are you could analyze my writing, like from my blog posts. What if I, took has somebody take all my posts and create an AI of me and put it inside of a robot, like an android or a synth, depending on what movie genre you're looking at for a cyborg type of scenario. Could you recreate someone's personality based on the history of their content over years and years worth of time?
Depends on how much content. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It also depends on another thing, like on how genuine they are, because a lot of people are not themselves on the internet. And so you could make what they look like on the internet, but you probably can't perfectly recreate how they are as a person.
That's
So
that's a genius perspective, Ethan. So let's twist that into what we were talking about earlier about your family's social media presence. What they know you not of that as that person that posted, that the pictures or the way you wrote or how you portrayed yourself. They knew you as a completely different person. How might they feel seeing your content live, beyond you, knowing that that's not who you are? or who you were.
Wow.
That might be a very good reason. She's like, that's not who Ethan was. I don't want to remember him like that, because
Yeah.
that's not who he was. I'm not going to allow his page to go into memoriam. I'm going to have it deleted. I'm going to request that it be deleted. Those are those may seem like trivial decisions now, but when you're in their moment, trust me, they are not.
Mhm.
Because what you're asking to do is delete someone's history of activity. And you can probably imagine how hard that would be. I mean, now I have backups, so I have nothing on social media that you can't find on my portable hard drive and backed up on a USB drive next to my desk. I don't save things like that to a mysterious cloud. I'm old school. I like to own things. Um, so my pictures won't be gone. They can be gone. They can be gotten. But a lot of people, they'll store those photos. They'll lock them in an Apple cloud or on their phone, and good luck getting to them easily. It's like having a bank account locked. So when Rebecca's dad passed away when she was in high school, her mom was locked out of her bank accounts, because when somebody dies, they immediately lock the accounts for investigation. So I mean, having those kind of contingencies, you have to plan for the management of those, because you could choose to delete someone's entire activity. I don't know. But then you might have competing viewpoints, right? So understanding both sides, thinking about these things. So there might be some, or I guess the family's decision. So one of the one of those stories that we had, going back to Rebecca's sister, it's a long flight to South Africa. And so my brother-in-law, his name's Rory. When Rory flew to South Africa, he was actually able to get there before she passed away. So
Oh, really?
He actually held her hand as the moment she passed away. So it was great that he was able to be there, but his boys couldn't go. They were still at home. So thinking back to that cyberbullying TED talk, it was the same idea. So we had a conundrum, right? With social media, you could post in South Africa and see it in the United States instantaneously. So the challenge was, how does the father of her boys, so my brother-in-law and my nephews, how do you make it so the boys don't find out their mother passed away before the father tells them? Because there's a gap in time before he's able to do that in person, because he has to fly it's like 17 to 22 hours, depending on the flight path you take, to get from that country to this one. So we had the challenge. We had to tell people, like, do not go over and console the boys. Don't tell them anything until their dad does it in person when he gets home. Because the last thing that they want to do is have somebody find out about something on the side because of what somebody else posted. So we had to manage expectations with family and friends on who tells who first, who posts online first. So that was a whole drama piece, like who posts online first about the situation. And so it was family first, and then who respects the wishes of like her profile. Well, obviously the husband does, the the spouse, in this case, makes that decision, and you have to be okay with it. That was the stance that we took. But those can lead to some very contentious viewpoints. But ultimately, if you have the confidence in the ability to stand up for the next of kin in that case, then those are easy decisions. But in the moment, they can be, if you're not prepared, or at least have thought about it before, they can take you off guard.
Wow.
Now I have to update my will. You're going to cost me some money.
So,
Well, that is a thing, actually. It totally is a thing. It is very common now in a will to have a statement or a paragraph about what you want done with your digital real estate or your digital estate.
unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that we all know that Impact City, we're a modern church, and we have a lot of modern ways, which is fantastic, by the way.
Oh yeah.
However, so you guys know that this coming Friday night, we're having the Amazing Race team night. It's going to be a big night and all of that, right? So it's interesting because I was reaching out to numerous people, inviting them to the team night, and I was struck by how many people don't have Facebook.
Mm.
And they can't register for it.
Oh.
But we only allow registration through Facebook.
What's also interesting, strategic, digital strategy wise, is having a digital property that you own to collect that information, that data, via your website that everyone can access. You're not limited to another property that you don't own.
Right, exactly. So I think it's some things we're taking away. Like, okay, we got to do something about that.
Yeah,
we can't
absolutely.
have only one way to register.
Or you do, but you make it accessible from the multiple points, and you
Right.
centralize it as into the property that you own and you control and you manage.
How, how do you contact people if they're not on Facebook?
Good old telephone.
No, that's a serious question.
Hello.
So how do you, so that's a very good, marketing question. How do you reach people if they're not available in the most traditional means?
Yeah.
Well, so my gut reaction is to that question. I'll take the first shot at it. Is you identify who it is you're trying to reach and the methods and understand the methods in which they receive information. Once you understand what those methods are, then you use those channels. So if there's somebody who appreciates a phone call, if they like mail, if they like people, if they like to be personally approached or stopped by, if you understand the preferred method of communication and receiving information, then you respect that and you figure out how to deliver your content in that way. Mm-hmm. That's a very vague answer, but generally that's what you do. So if you don't have a Facebook, well, how else are they connected? Do they know an influencer? Are they meeting up with somebody regularly that you're connected with? How do you plug into the crowd that they're connected to so they can be reached in a different way?
I think one of the things, here's some feedback for you, Bob, if you don't already know, but Impact sending out the mass text now, like start of service and whatnot. Funny thing is, those texts, join us live for Sunday morning. It always comes like 10 minutes after the service starts. Need to be a little earlier, but I guess that's one way. So if you don't have Facebook, everybody has a cell phone, and out of the people that have cell phones, I don't know, there's got to be greater than 90% of them.
I've never, I'll be honest, I'm not even involved in any of that when it comes to those decisions. But I've often thought the same thing, because, I subscribe to numerous churches around the country. And when I get those texts, they're coming 15 minutes before church starts saying, don't forget, log on in 15 minutes. But we do it after. We do it like, I will check that out because it's a good point.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the carrier, and the speed of your data or cell connection as well. So just to play the other side, not to defend Obadiah or anything like that, but just to understand the other side, because a lot of times Rebecca and I get the text at the same time, and we get them early, and then sometimes we get them later. If I'm at home and I'm connected to Wi-Fi and I'm upstairs, I'll get it faster than me right now in my basement, because my cell reception is better up there. And on my phone, which is an S9, so it's a little bit older, if I'm connected to my Wi-Fi, my cell phone connection and my ability to receive texts delays. Those are the types of things that are really, really hard to control.
Yeah.
So the safe bet is to send it out 15 minutes early so you can accommodate everyone's variable level of technology and variable connection speeds. So you can accommodate that buffer.
Yeah, well, I would just mainly, I just brought that up just specifically because, we're talking about, well, what do you do for people that don't have Facebook? I think that's a great idea,
It is very
so
great.
long as it executes, properly. But yeah,
Mhm.
I mean,
I think that's one thing that Impact does very well is utilizing, even though we gave, kind of a negative example, I think generally there are a lot of different ways to connect.
That's
to
true.
to connect to the church, to connect with each other. I mean, what we're doing now is just one of many examples, even, not just a strong social media presence and a strong social brand, between the Google search, stuff that we talked about last time. Obviously, we know where the help is needed on owning the centralized presence of the church, as a website and digital property. But there are a lot of different ways to stay connected. Occasionally I'll get a piece of mail. Bob, you were at my house dropping off a gift bag last spring. I wore that hat today. I wear that thing all the time. I mean, there are so many different ways that the church is an example of how to touch people in the way that they prefer to be touched. And I mean that like spiritually and connectedness in a ways that they would like to be connected.
That is that is a classic innovation of Justin and Mindy. I'm telling you right now, and it's really great because it permeates even down now, and we're seeing this where unique ways to touch people are occurring, and so it's been really great to watch.
Yeah. So we're at our 8 o'clock time. Are there any subjects in this area that are questions? I think Ethan, yeah, that was a great question. Are there other types of questions or just thoughts that you have in this area that you want to open up to?
I think I know on mine, it's a good check because I think I've already listed Sarah as my legacy contact
Oh yeah, good.
on there. I think
Yeah,
I've already put her on
we
there.
didn't talk about that yet, did we?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's a relatively new feature. It's not that old. That's a Facebook feature
Hmm.
where you can specify if you go through the settings. Again, this is one we can dive into next week with them showing where I can go through some screen sharing with settings. That's a setting you can specify, so it makes it easier so you don't have to go through the fight of getting ownership of a social account and proving that you're the person who should have control over someone else's account. Especially with Apple products, it is very, very hard. It's even hard to to get control of your own account if you get locked out of an Apple device. Even more so when you're trying to take over someone else's. So there's a legacy contact function that Bob mentioned that you can actually specify who should have access to your account, and you can link their account to yours.
I think I have to do it from my desktop. I don't think I can access that stuff on my phone.
All the settings features. A lot of times it's easier to see it on a big screen than your phone too. Well, these are some big thoughtful conversations. I hope that the activity really kind of helped open up your thoughts a little bit about thinking outside the box. The scripture from the book of James really kind of helped put a lens. So Jason and Ethan, you have a deal as you watch those videos. That encourage you, probably take you like 15 minutes to watch them both. You can watch those with the lens of these things and the discussion that we've had tonight, and it's very thought provoking when you think about not just the content and the management of people's feelings and the impact, but also just the technological ability that we have to even enable these things is really quite fascinating to think about.
Cool.
So, by the way, Jason, if you go through your phone and you go to Facebook and you go to it's the tab or the title area is your Facebook information, and then you go down to ownership and control.
Mm.
It's account ownership and control.
Oh, I do have that.
And then
Okay.
when you click on that, click memorialization settings. And then you can choose a legacy contact, or you can ask you can actually choose to have your Facebook deleted after your death.
Wow, I've already got it set up. I must have done something right. I don't remember. I tell you what, that's one thing, when I do something new, or I normally take a deep dive, into figuring out, and then I get it the way that it needs to be, and then I move on to something else, and then you come back a year later like, I don't remember, did I do that? But yeah, I'm that way with Microsoft. If I don't have to turn any location settings on, or share any information, or give any kind of feedback, I don't. I can't stand that stuff. Everything on Microsoft on my desktop is off. Do you want to give feedback to Microsoft? No. Do you want to file a report for that? No. Do you want to do that? No, 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 no. Stay out of my life.
Yeah. I think we're leading into a really good setup for our time for next week, which is very, very good, because next week we're going to be talking about privacy and security settings, and we're also going to be dipping our toes into live streaming. Yeah, so two very fun topics to talk about. And if we want to get into it a little bit, with a combination of those two things, we can talk about how geofences work. You know what a geofence is?
No.
So a little bit of a tease for next week's conversation. So remember, I tried to share some questions and thought stuff ahead of time. So a geofence is essentially just as it sounds, a geographically defined area. So think like location data on your phone or where your PC is. You can actually define certain things that can happen in a certain geo-fenced space, or define things that are not defined in a geo-fenced space. So think about it from an advertising perspective, like Snapchat or any of the virtual augmented reality games like Pokemon Go or the Hogwarts, Harry Potter game. If you walk into a certain area, you get a pop-up ad, or you get a notification or something like that. Or you get a filter on Snapchat that's only available in this 200 square meters, of activity. So that's using geofence. The other way that you can use geofence that happened most recently in a mass scale is on the Capitol building insurrection. That riot that took place.
Yeah.
They actually subpoenaed Google and Apple to get people's cell phone geolocation data to prove who was there, or to find out who was there, because most people don't turn off their geolocation on their phones when they go places. And it's not something you normally think about. So if you plan on going someplace like that, turn off your geolocation on your phone, because it can be subpoenaed against you. So those are the types of security protocol.
On that comforting thought,
we're going to talk about all that next week when we dive into some of those. I told you it's a very deep day today as we think about these things. So these can be very dangerous tools, but we're here to really look at how we twist these tools for the greater good, and to spread God's righteousness and all those things that really make the world a better place. But a lot of times you have to understand how it can be used negatively to understand how you can twist those and use that to make it a more positive experience for people. Yeah. So you kind of have to understand both sides in order to accomplish our goal that we have, to use these tools for the better. So
wow, great topic tonight, Sean. Great job.
Yeah, thanks for going along with such a touchy and sensitive, dark topic. It's I think it's fun to think about, and it's really, I'm so passionate that these topics get talked about, because these things happen, and they're going to happen, and you don't want to think about it in the midst of situation you don't want to be in. You want to think about it ahead of time so you know what to do when you get there.
You know.
Good stuff, man.
All right. Well, if everyone's all good, I think we can wrap for tonight.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Take
All
care.
right.
Next
See
week.
ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.